Arvada City Hall, and as the community mourns the death of Officer Beasley, we've also learned the suspected shooter and one other person died in that shooting. It happened in Old Town near the Arvada Library. People in the area of 57th and Old Watts were sheltered in place while police worked to secure the area. And officers now say the threat is over, and now this tight-knit community where people get to know their police officers is grieving together. Good evening and welcome to Denver 7 News at 10. I'm Ann Trujillo and we have team coverage for you tonight. Liz Gilardi is breaking down the timeline of today's events. Gary Brode has details on efforts to honor Arvada's fallen officer. And Addie Guajardo is checking in with neighbors, trying to come to terms with this act of violence. And first I want to bring in my colleague Shannon Ogden. He is live in Arvada tonight. Shannon, for anyone who is not familiar with the area, Old Town is packed with independent stores, coffee shops, restaurants. Very much the kind of place where you might want to spend the afternoon with your family.
Well, absolutely, Ann, and good evening to you. Good evening, everybody. In fact, that's the city library right behind me, where you take your kids, where you take your family. And it was outside of that library, just on the other side of it, where the shootings happened about 1:30 this afternoon, and 2 lives were lost. Now, something I want to focus on a lot tonight. To my right, about half a mile, is the iconic water tower for the city of Arvada. This 111-year-old water tower is really the symbol of this town, and tonight it is illuminated blue. It's a sign of just what this loss means to this town. They take the very symbol of this town and they light it up to honor Officer Beasley and the other person whose life was lost today. And we have extensive Denver 7 team coverage for you this evening. And we begin with Denver 7's Liz Gilardi. Liz?
Well, and crime scene tape is still up throughout Old Town Arvada. Tonight, a veteran police officer, a school resource officer, lost his life. And the question everyone still has in this community is one that we just can't answer right now. Why?
They were all yelling, they're like, there's an active shooter, there's an active shooter.
Right as Risa Davis showed up to work at a business in Old Town Arvada.
So it's just like a panic.
She saw police and people running.
I just ran to my work to try and get inside.
Before the shooting, an Arvada police officer responded to a 911 call. Shots were fired about 15 minutes later.
At about 1:15 this afternoon, an Arvada officer responded to a call of a suspicious incident in the Old Town Square near the Arvada Library.
We're still not sure what happened, but 3 people are dead. The police officer, a Good Samaritan, and a suspect. It's difficult for people in this quiet community to comprehend.
I really didn't think it was gunshots, so I wasn't really paying attention to exactly how many shots.
Tonight, the investigation continues. Questions remain unanswered.
This is an active investigation with many moving pieces.
And a community mourns, still shaken.
But I feel rattled.
I couldn't believe that it happened a block away from my apartment.
I mean, just hard for people to believe. That's why at first they didn't even realize they were hearing gunshots in this community. The investigation is really only just beginning. Police say they'll continue to be in the area tonight. They're asking people for their patience. They say to also give them some room and some space as they're, investigating as well. And we're hoping to learn more tomorrow about this other person who was killed, a potential Good Samaritan who was just briefly mentioned in that press conference earlier today, and what exactly who that person is and what exactly their role was today. Reporting live, Liz Gilardi, Denver 7.
Liz, thank you, and thanks for all your work this afternoon. And this evening, a powerful gesture from the law enforcement community. A long procession of police vehicles and motorcycles gathered to honor Officer Beasley. Denver 7's Gary Brode has that and continues our team coverage tonight. Gary?
Shannon, we saw dozens and dozens of officers out here earlier today for Officer Beasley's procession from different departments across the Denver metro. We also saw a huge outpouring of support from the community who were out here showing and paying their respects for a man who gave his life to protect his town. For just a brief moment, dozens from this small community said goodbye to one of their own.
These are the officers I wave to and say hi to for the last 10 years. I stopped and talked to them, they stopped and talked to me, and it's family.
Some held flags, others couldn't hold back tears.
I just don't understand why people are doing this for nothing. Why is there so much hate in this world? The cops aren't all bad.
About 36 officers on motorcycles followed closely behind their brother. A line of flashing lights followed them.
I respect law enforcement, I guess, and I saw them lining up the parade. I wanted to see it for myself and I guess pay respects to the poor officer and his family.
And now a town is forced to come together.
Our hearts are broken. We are Arvada. This is our community that is hurting today, and so just had to be here. This was a human being whose life was lost today, someone who has served our community, and just had to be here to honor that person.
Behind me here at Ralston and Wadsworth is where that procession started. It happened right around 6 o'clock. As you can see, the intersection is now back open. That opened up about 8:30, but certainly, Shannon, just an emotional day for anyone who attended that procession.
Absolutely. Gary Brode, thank you for that, and thank you as well for all your work on this sad story today. And I want to take a moment, take a deeper look at law enforcement deaths in our country tonight. This year alone, 151 officers died in the United States. This is according to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. It says that number is 11% higher than this time last year. Now, firearm-related deaths roughly equal. Traffic deaths rose sharply from last year when, of course, the pandemic kept many people at home. And Officer Eric Talley is the only other Colorado officer to die by gunfire this year. Of course, he was killed while responding to the Boulder shooting in March. And tomorrow, by the way, marks 3 months to the day since that horrible mass shooting at the King Soopers on Table Mesa in Boulder. Three months. It claimed so many lives, including that Boulder police officer. And as we start to wrap things up, I want to mention that Old Town is plastered with these signs that say Arvada is safe and open. And it just makes things sadder that while we're trying to keep things COVID-free, a shooting happens out of the blue that no one could have stopped and claims these 2 lives. And then finally, Ann, I know we're still getting details on these 2 people who died, including Officer Beasley. We don't know all the details of their family. But Ann, I just can't help but realize that this happened today, just one day after Father's Day. So back to you in the
Absolutely.
studio.
Thank you for that, Shannon. I think it's an important reminder for all of us that these are the kinds of events that stick with you over and over again, and certainly can't shake them. So thank you, Shannon, for that. I want to get to Denver7's Addie Guajardo now. And Addie, I know that you've been talking to witnesses, business owners, and this shooting, as we've said, really has shaken this small, tight-knit community.
And it truly has. Their pain has been palpable as they recounted those traumatizing moments that they endured while they were out here. You know, the crime scene tape and the countless patrol cars that flooded Webster Street and 57th Avenue are now gone. But the trauma these residents and visitors experienced today, that will never be forgotten. Community members I spoke with tell me this is the kind of community where people help each other out. One business owner telling me she knows officers in this community by name. 2 of them came to her business earlier today to help her out just hours before the shooting. She says this is exactly why this loss just hurts so deeply. A quiet community shaken.
Take shelter now.
In Old Town Arvada.
Heard gunshots in 3 different bursts of them.
Shots that sent people running for safety.
Nannies and kids were running in from the park right next to us saying there were active shooters in the area.
Businesses opened their doors to shelter their community.
Some people were, frantic, and that's the ones we said, hey, jump in here, it'll be a safe spot.
Jamie locked her business and called her husband.
You might hear on the news that there's a shooter, and I'm okay, and tell my son I'm okay. I just wanted my family to know I was fine.
Just a deep bellowing boom.
Jeremy found himself too close to the threat.
I heard the shots between 5 and 7, and I rounded on my heels and saw the shooter.
Moments later,
saw him on the ground, and the shooter seemed, detached.
In a community where neighbors rely on each other, pain painted a palpable heartache.
The thing about this community is the cops are very different. They're very well trained. They're very empathetic. When's it going to stop? When are we going to stop taking down police officers?
and innocent people. I'm just tired of it.
I hate that you've got to make phone calls to everybody because you never know where they're going to be.
And Jeremy, that's the last resident you heard right there. He's a Coloradan. He lives out in Loveland. He says he was separated from his father for a little bit of time before he was able to find him again. Jeremy says he witnessed that officer go down after he was shot. Obviously a very traumatizing moment. Residents in this community tell me that this will forever change the way they perceive their quiet community. Now when they go out, they'll be a lot more vigilant. And for anyone who's parked out here that hasn't been able to access their vehicles, officers say now is the time to come pick them up. Reporting live in Arvada, Addie Guajardo, Denver7.
All right, Addie, thank you. And Colorado leaders also responding to the shootings today. Governor Jared Polis releasing a statement today in writing, "My thoughts are with the family and friends of the officer who was tragically killed in the line of duty while swiftly and bravely responding to protect civilians in the area." Congressman Joe Neguse wrote on Twitter, "I'm devastated to learn of the loss of one of Arvada's police officers. Our hearts break each time there's an incident of gun violence in Colorado and another community is impacted." And Arvada's mayor had high praise for the courage and character of his city's police officers.
Each and every day, all of our officers go out not knowing what's going to be ahead of them and what they're going to confront. But their willingness to do that and to protect us is what makes them so special, and that we really, really do need to respect and honor them.
And appreciate them. Now, if you want to make a donation to support the family of the fallen officer, you can do that through the Colorado Fallen Hero Foundation. The Arvada Police Department says that is the only official donation site, and that website is there at the bottom of your screen.
It's a shoddy job. He should have never done work like this. He shouldn't work in Colorado.
A contractor facing charges after leaving Colorado families in the lurch.
I don't want anyone would have to go through what I went through or my family went through.
And the generous donations of Denver7 Gives viewers are making sure some much needed work finally gets done.
It means a lot. I'm so excited that we are going to get going again on this.
Temperatures were lower today, but the 90s will come back tomorrow.